I'm not yet convinced that we are being visited. I have not yet come to that point of view, and I'm trying to look at the evidence and draw appropriate conclusions, but I think it's premature to say that.
Disinformation and the counterintelligence infusion of getting people off the track, and I'm certain that journalists are a part of that, make it very difficult to do my job.
There is a lot of cooperation in cover-up from the press itself.
And I think we're dealing also with a political espionage game that's right within the UFO field.
There is very strong evidence that the government is covering up.
More and more people from every walk of life claim that they have been abducted.
There's a great number of people doing research in this subject who are not trained. People are in great traumatic conditions after an event like this, and they're looking for any help they can find.
And my thesis is simply the same as our committee, that if this is true, the United States government owes it to the people to conduct a strict, serious scientific investigation into the matter to find out exactly what's going on.
The UFO phenomenon is an area with a wide range of subject matter, and there are many, many people who have devoted their lives to trying to obtain answers to this unusual topic. Joining me now are 5 of the top people in the field, each with their own specialty. William Moore is the president of the Fair Witness Project, an organization that conducts investigations into these strange events across North America. Bill is also the author of the best-selling book, The Roswell Incident, an investigation into a crashed UFO in Roswell, New Mexico in the 1940s. Dr. Frank Strangers founded the National Investigations Committee on UFOs. Dr. Strangers has been investigating the phenomenon for nearly 40 years and has lectured on the subject throughout the world. Vicki Cooper is the editor of UFO, a bi-monthly magazine devoted entirely to the subject of unidentified flying objects. The magazine is in its 3rd year of publication and is currently available throughout the United States. Dr. Richard Haines is a former government employee of NASA and is on the National Board for the Fund for UFO Research. Dr. Haines is also the author of several books on the UFO phenomenon. Ed Conroy is a feature writer for the San Antonio Express News and has written the book Report on Communion, which takes an in-depth look at Whitley Strieber and the effect his book Communion has had not only on Strieber, but also on the world. Mr. Conroy, let's start with you.
Very well.
How much attention has the book Communion had on the subject of UFOs and abductions?
Well, I think that the effect of Whitley Strieber's book, Communion, is really incalculable in the sense that it has probably had more impact on the general public than any other first-person UFO abduction narrative ever published in English. It has sold over 2 million copies in both hardback and paper. A recent report in the New York Times stated that it's selling 18,000 copies in paper per month currently. And I believe that really the most significant thing that it's done, Roddy, has been to enable people to begin to talk about this, in the sense that I believe that Strieber, because he was a well-known and well-respected author, broke through what I call the respectability barrier.
Dr. Strangers, why have there been so many reports in recent years, so many more about abductions?
I believe the media has gotten a hold of this thing perhaps for the first time, and more people from every walk of life claim that they have been abducted. And my thesis is simply the same as our committee, that if this is true, the United States government owes it to the people to conduct a strict, serious scientific investigation into the matter to find out exactly what's going on.
Dr. Haines, you've done a lot of research regarding the abduction victims. Is there a better way to go about this investigation?
Yes, I think there is. First of all, there's a great number of people doing research in this subject who are not trained. Oh. And they are self-taught hypnotists, for instance. And without an understanding of the damage that can be produced.
Are they taken seriously?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
People are in great traumatic conditions after an event like this, and they're looking for any help they can find.
Huh. Bill Moore, what prompted you to get involved?
As far as the motivation, I got interested in UFOs back in the 1950s as a student, maintained that interest after getting out of college in the middle 1960s, and got involved in a series of cases of UFO reports in upstate New York, where I was working at that time. Specialized work in the area of the United States government and what it knows about this phenomenon.
Do you believe that the government has been covering up?
Well, it's not a belief system. I believe that vanilla tastes better than chocolate. There is very strong evidence that the government is covering up. There is documentary evidence. Documentary evidence in the form of censored documents. In one instance, there was a case that went all the way to the United States Supreme Court against a government agency which was willfully withholding documentation from the public.
I see you nodding in agreement, Ms.
As a journalist and one who's trying to get straight information to the public about a very bizarre and hard to understand subject, disinformation and the counterintelligence infusion of getting people off the track, and I'm certain that journalists are a part of that, make it very difficult to do my job, getting the right pieces of information, accurate information.
Do you think it's just this nation, or is it other nations?
I absolutely think it's worldwide. And I think we're dealing also with a political espionage game that's right within the UFO field.
Dr. Strangers, I understand that you were contacted by people in Russia recently.
Yes, I received a phone call from the Soviet news agency TASS, and they wanted my point of view as far as the UFO landing outside of Moscow. And the following day, I got a call from the University of Moscow, and the gentleman was quizzing me very, very closely as to how that particular landing related to certain landings in the United States. And he said, "Do you have any advice?" I said, "Well, if I was in charge of it, I would take each individual witness alone, by himself, individually, question them thoroughly, and then question them collectively, and then draw your bottom line and see what you have."
Dr. Haines, do you believe that these beings are trying to make specific contact with any of us?
That's posing the question in a very difficult way to answer.
Oh.
Because,
I've done it again.
because I'm not yet convinced that we are being visited. I have not yet come to that point of view, and I'm trying to look at the evidence and draw appropriate conclusions. But I think it's premature to say that.
There isn't enough evidence yet.
Not as far as I'm concerned. To quote our friend Carl Sagan, there are billions and billions of planets or star systems that might be capable of supporting life.
Ms. Cooper, can you give us a little background on the Roswell incident?
Well, as brief as I can, I'll try to, but actually Bill is more the expert in that. On July 7th, I believe it was, 1947, a rancher in Roswell, New Mexico, a little town, found some very strange debris that looked to him as if it might be a problem that was beyond his authority. And so he went to the sheriff at Roswell and suggested that it may be, the sheriff did, a military problem. So that he, the sheriff in turn, went to military authorities. The Army Air Force subsequently came by. Would you like to take it from here, Bill?
It was a physical, you wrote the book, it was a
Yeah,
physical
he wrote the
evidence.
There is some military documentation to suggest that this occurred. In fact, the very first press release that was put out by the Army Air Force at Roswell on the 7th of July, 1947, stated unequivocally that the Air Force had, in fact, recovered the wreckage of a flying saucer. That was their words, not mine. And that made world headlines. The next day, General R.M. Ramey of the 8th Air Force, on orders from the Pentagon, countermanded the story, said it was all a big mistake, that it had been nothing more than a misidentified weather device. The man who gave that story to the press, the adjutant to General Ramey, General Dubose, still living today and a man in his 80s, has stated to us that the whole weather device story was nothing more than a fabrication designed to get the press off of their backs.
Were beings actually seen at that incident?
According to witnesses, there were bodies found on the ground. 4 bodies.
Mr. Conroy, as a newspaper man, do you suppose one of the reasons the government is covering this up is that they're afraid the public won't be able to handle it?
Well, naturally, I think the thing that needs to be pointed out, however, is that there is a lot of cooperation in cover-up from the press itself, in the sense that there is a tremendous fear among professional journalists who cover stories of recognizable importance, shall we say, against attaching themselves in any way whatsoever to a subject that has so much ridicule associated with it. And there is still a general flippant attitude among many of my colleagues towards this subject. And it's really, I think, based much on fears of losing their class status as serious journalists. And so I think that we ourselves bear much of the responsibility for the problem.
But I want to thank all of you very much for sharing your thoughts with all of us. It's been intriguing. I've loved it, and I want to wish you all the best of luck as you continue to search out your answers on this phenomenon. Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
You're
Thanks.
welcome.